you guys a little bit, just spend a couple of minutes kind of talking about what we're going to do the rest of the day and really framing why we as BWR members and as African American women should care about global work. And because it is important, right? Because some people ask why, right? We got enough issues to deal with in the United States. Why are we looking elsewhere? And it's all connected. And we should understand that. And, you know, let me just give you a little bit of information that probably most of you know, right? So the UN General Assembly proclaimed that between 2015 and 24 was the decade, the International Decade of People of African Descent, right? And the theme that they gave, the title they gave, are People of African Descent, Recognition, Justice, and Development. Now, the UN recognized the issues that people of color, black folks, go through. And they had three focal areas, right? Promote respect, protection, and fulfillment of all human rights. Promote a greater knowledge and respect for the diverse heritage, culture, and contribution of people of African descent, and adopt and strengthen national, regional, and international legal frameworks to support the protection of human rights for people of African descent. And so the UN is asking countries, right, that are members of the UN, they're asking countries around the world at the national level to take concrete and practical action through the adoption of effective implementation in national and international legal frameworks, right? They also wanted to look at different policies and programs to combat racism, racial discrimination, xenophobia, and related intolerance faced by people of African descent, taking into account the particular situation of women and girls. So, you know, I look at this and I'm like, hey, if these men at the UN, and they're mainly men, can see the issues, right? We definitely should have no problem seeing the connection, right? When we think of the African diaspora, we often think of the U.S. and the Caribbean initially, right? And maybe Latin America, but it's much bigger than that, right? Much of the African diaspora was dispersed throughout Europe even. You know, so our thinking about this has to be broader, right, than just a few countries, right? We have to look everywhere. We had, you know, they had the, you know, we had Arabs take African slaves from Central and Eastern Africa, right? And so, you know, we have to look at the Middle East, right? We have to look at Asia. We need to look everywhere to find us because we're there, right? And so I just wanted to bring that to the forefront and really get us to thinking about why we do the global work. Here in the U.S., August 2019 will mark 400 years. We'll talk about that since the first documented arrival, right, of Africans here, right? And so we went from 1619 to 2019. And so, so that's an important marking that we'll talk about today. And so there's a lot that BWR can do in the U.S., but there's a lot that we have to join our sisters, like our Kenyan sisters, right, around the world to make a difference. So today, we're going to do some of that this afternoon over the next couple of hours. We're calling this piece Women of the African Diaspora, Global Economic and Social Justice Power. Because it really is about building power for us, right? Right. We're going to have two panels that will discuss this. The first will be a discussion with sisters from, well, we had a discussion with sisters from Kenya. The second panel, this panel here, will be BWR members and guests bringing their global experience and sharing that global experience. After that, we will have another discussion that will be led by Marcia, and they'll talk about South Africa in particular. All right? And so I think we'll, before we bring the folks up here, we'll have a musical selection by our sister, BWR member, our leader, and our my global co-chair, Ms. Latasha Brown.
How y'all doing, sisters? So this isn't even about a song. What I want us to do is I want us to ground us in the experience. I want to share a quick experience, and I want you all to join me in the process. So I went to, I'm from Alabama, and I went to Montgomery, Alabama, to the Peace and Justice Memorials, the memorial that Brian Stevenson did that honors our people who were lynched. And so I've been to Africa about 9 or 10 times, and I've always gone and had an amazing experience and waited on to have this moment where I would go, even in Goree Island, that I would have this particular moment to break down, and I felt it. But here I go back to Alabama. I'm in Alabama. I go to this Peace and Justice Memorial, and when you get there, you see there's these different monuments dedicated to our people who have been lynched, right, throughout the country. And as you go through it, it's a really interesting experience because the floor gets, the distance between the floor and from the ceiling changes. So when you get to the bottom, you look up and you see just hanging monuments, right? And then so it was really a powerful experience for me, and I felt it, and I'm going around and I'm thinking I'm leaving out. And as I'm leaving out, there's this wall with water on it. And the wall with the water on it was for the unknown. And as I got there, Spirit told me to sit down. And so I sat down. I was with a brother. Some of y'all may know Kenny Glasgow is a brother who does a lot of work around formerly incarcerated persons. And so he and I just silently, I sat on the step and he sat in front of me. And he was sitting straight, almost like he was on guard. And it was almost like he was protecting me. And I sat there, and all of a sudden I just started crying. And then I started wailing. And then I could feel myself wailing, and I heard my voice, and it wasn't my voice. I could hear just like different wails. And I could feel, y'all, I'm telling you, and I brought up Southern Baptist Christian, right? I just want y'all to know, right? But I'm sitting there, and I could literally feel sisters that had never been given the space to grieve, right? That was sitting there grieving with me. I could feel it. And he actually sat there, and he actually he sat there and he was like a soldier. And he wouldn't let anybody touch me. I just kind of lost it for a moment. In about 30 minutes, and I'm looking and I'm wailing. And I wound up, at one point I pulled myself together, and I knew it, and I knew I had been surrounded by these sisters who had not been given the opportunity to grieve, and which were the ancestors. And then we got up. He and I to this day have never talked about it. We got up, and it's interesting because he was sitting in front of me, and for some reason he felt me. So when I stood up, he stood up at the same exact time, right? And we actually wound up leaving out, and I wound up writing a blog about it and said, yesterday I cried with the ancestors. And what that space did for me is I know that I know what I know, and y'all know it too. Ancestors are real. It's grounded in real, right? And there's folks that try to teach us through different kind of beliefs and all kind of stuff that don't touch that, be afraid of that. I don't know about y'all, but my grandmama be talking to me sometimes, right? And I know I can feel the spirit. I can feel it, right? And I'm saying that because we need to understand that even when we're standing in a room, and I heard Oprah even say this, she didn't stand at herself. I got 10,000 with me, sisters, right? You cannot believe that the blood of our ancestors, right, that have fertilized this ground is going to go and it's not going to be called on. You need to understand, right, that even when folks tell us to forget about slavery, I say, I can't forget about slavery because they won't let me, right? And so even with Brian Stevenson, I shared this moment with him, and it was interesting. And we were in this very high level meeting thing. And if you all know Brian Stevenson, he's a legal, brilliant genius. And he was sitting there, and I shared the story, and he stopped me. And he said, sister, you don't know how happy I am for you to share that story. And he wound up saying, I'll say this real quickly. He said, when I was a little boy, I went down to North Carolina, and my grandmama had that same experience. He said, but fast forward it. He did, some of you all that may not know him, everybody should know him, but he does a lot of work around ending the death penalty and has gotten a lot of brothers and sisters off death row. And so he said that he was in his office before he started this piece. He was in his office, and he needed to clear his head, and he goes down to the Alabama River. And he went down to the Alabama River, and he was sitting down there, just kind of clearing his head. He said, and then he said, all of a sudden I heard a boat pull up. And he said, I could hear the chains. I can hear the people get off the boat. He said, and I could hear folks talking and negotiating back and forth. And he said, and I could hear people yell and scream, and I could hear the wailing. He said, and then I felt they surrounded me. And he said, you can do it. They just start chanting, keep moving, keep moving. And as a result, he created this piece. I say that, and then he looked at me, and I'm telling you, we're across the room, we're billionaires in the room. And he looked at me, he said, sister, you ain't, he said, I understand, because I hear them too. So I don't know how many of y'all hear them, or they're in your spirit. So you have to know that we are not alone. Right, and no matter what it looked like, right, they are outnumbered, right, because the ancestors are with us. And so in that spirit, I want to read this quick Bible verse that I saw, that I didn't get it, and I'm like, God, let me get it this morning. I was like, okay, all right, I got it now. It's Deuteronomy 1 and 8. See, I have given you this land. Go in and take possession of the land the Lord swore he gave to your ancestors and to their descendants after him. I need you to hear it in your spirit. Before I even sing a song, I want you just to sit there for a minute. And whatever ancestor it is that called, that you know, that gives strength. Because I know for a fact that I am living off my grandmama prayers right now. She used to be praying, y'all, and she was saying, and we were like, Mama, what you doing? She said, I'm storing up prayers for my babies. I'm storing up prayers. And every once in a while, I was like, hey, Mama, I need you. I know you talking, because you couldn't tell me as a child that Jesus and my grandma weren't best friends. They talked all the time, right? So in that space and in that spirit, right, I want you all not in a space of entertainment, because we get to music and all that stuff as entertainment. No, but in the spirit of we're going to honor our ancestors. And we're just going to do a little clips of it. Y'all will know some of the songs. If you know it, sing it with me. And now I had two people who requested this one, but if you know it, sing it. Just sing it with me. I know I've been changed. Oh Lord, I know I've been changed. Oh Lord, I know I've been changed. You know the angels in heaven done sign my name. Oh Lord, I know I've been changed. Oh Lord, I know I've been changed. Oh Lord, I know I've been changed. You know the angels in heaven done sign my name. Amen. Amen. Walk with me, Lord. Won't you walk with me? Walk with me, Lord. Walk with me. All along this teacher's journey, I want Jesus just to walk with me. Be my friend. Be my friend, Lord. Be my friend. Be my friend. All along this teacher's journey, I want Jesus. Walk with me. And this song right here, my grandma would sing it, and for years I refused to sing it because I didn't understand it. I was like, I don't know about this, Mama. Right? And I promise y'all, I got it now. I may not have had it before, but at 48, I got it. Lord, won't you move my mountain, but give me the strength to climb. And Lord, take away my stumbling blocks, but lead me all around. One more time, come on, sisters. Oh Lord, don't you move my mountain, but give me the strength to climb. And Lord, don't take away my stumbling blocks, but lead me all around. Amen. Amen. And y'all may know this one. Oh, it is Jesus. Yes, it is Jesus. It's Jesus in my soul. All I will touch the hem of his garment, and his blood has made me whole. Amen. Oh, it is Jesus. Yes, it is Jesus. Y'all feel me? What? It's Jesus in my soul. Oh, I have touched the hem of his garment, and his blood has made me whole. Amen. And this is the last one. We shall not be moved. Come on, sisters. We shall not be moved, just like a tree that's planted by the waters. We shall not be moved. Come on, we're going to speed it up. Oh, we shall not be. We're not going to be moved, sisters. We shall not be moved, just like a tree that's planted by the waters. We shall not be moved. Amen. If somebody feel the spirit, say hallelujah. 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 Blessings, sisters, blessings.
Oh, thank you, sister. Our sister leader took us back to church, right? Appreciate you, Latasha. So, yeah, that was good, wasn't it? So we are going to, if the members of the Black Women's Roundtable Global Empowerment Workgroup could head toward the stage, that'll be good. We're going to share and talk a little bit, spend a couple minutes talking about our work. First, I'm going to have Tanya come up. You ready?
So you all know I don't like to be on the mic. I like to be behind the scenes because I'm very shy. Trust me, I am. Trust me, I am. I really am. Okay. So, ladies and gentlemen, I need you all to stand and help us all to take a moment and wish this woman who has provided tireless work to make sure this BWR Summit is perfect and exceeded our expectation. This woman consistently works at late at night. Yes, she does. Anybody know it? They get 3 o'clock, 4 o'clock a.m. emails, fielding calls, and working with various funders to make sure that the women at BWR are able to do the work that they are put out here to do. So at this overall, she makes everybody feel better, from if you're a janitor to a president of an organization. So we would like to take this time to wish Melanie Campbell and have her to come up here and tell her thank you. Pretty cries only. And you have your red and white flowers that you wanted. So again, Melanie, we want you to know we love you, we appreciate you. All the tireless nights you keep us up, but we appreciate everything because this is what we get in the end. So thank you, and we appreciate you. And you got your red and white flowers. Oh, now?
Thank you for the red and white.
Thank you so very much.
I gotta take this back to Florida, honey. You gotta represent.
CG?
So now, y'all follow suit because when she said like 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning, you gotta work. And
They train me. I can't.
They work all night, honestly.
All right, here come Robert now. Here we go. Over here. I better slice her. Hey! Monique. Sheena, you take the best pictures we can do. Oh, there you go. With all the angles. That works. That's my sister. All right. Wait a minute, Melanie got to throw her little thing down.
Enough. Thank you. So come this way. Okay. And then where's Sarah?
They're over there.
Who wants a mic? Yeah, those are big. Okay. I know.
Okay, members of the Global Empowerment Workgroup, stay up there for a minute. So, ladies, these are the members of the Global Empowerment Workgroup, some of the members, and we're going to give them a couple minutes each to talk about, the work that they've been doing. Sheila, do you want to come back up here? So we're going to give them a couple of minutes to talk about, to give them a couple of minutes to talk about the work that they've been doing. And you each should have a mic in your chair. We'll start with Salandra, and then we'll keep down this way. Go ahead, Salandra.
Well, but thank you, Sarah. So as you see, we was part of, we continue to have to do the work in Kenya with our Kenya sisters. on a daily basis. We're in communication with them. We also sponsor and continue to sponsor the Black Women Roundtable in Florida, school supplies, community support, and then some of the community organizations that were there in Kenya. We continue to do some global work in St. Lucia as well, supporting some of the sisters there that's doing community work and building out education. And I just want to bring my doctor sister, Eugenia, who's actually, you're here for my other sister, come, like I told y'all the other day, I'm transitioning out from the coach to the player, so I'm going to put her here. No, you see he's here. I'll put her here, okay. And she's going to tell you about the work we're doing over in Cameroon and the stuff that we're doing. Thank you.
Good morning, good afternoon, everyone. I am here with the pleasure of being a part of the Black Women's Roundtable because we have been so progressive to help and reach back a hand. And if I could just ask you to just close your eyes for 1 second, please. Everyone just close your eyes, please. And I want you to visualize Africa. Just get it in your head right now, please. Just visualize the map of Africa. And know that while your eyes are closed, that you are descendants of Africa. And you can open your eyes now. Just keep that visualization in your eyes to know that we are responsible to reach back a hand. We are Africa. We are Africans. We are proud African women. And the more that we know that, the better for our community. So on behalf of the Black Women's Roundtable, we were able to allow for our community to be educated in Florida. We were able to have people understand their heritage, learn about their roots. We had a delegation of about 15 kings that came in from Cameroon, Africa, and presented to the youth to let them know there's someone special. We're not people who we're just slaves. We didn't come from slavery. We came from kings and queens. We are royalty. Yes, we are. And the more we know that, the best it is for our culture, because we don't feel good about ourselves as a whole. So I want you to lift your head up when you walk and instill that pride in yourselves, instill that pride in your children, instill that pride in your family members, because we are someone special. And with the help of the Black Women's Roundtable, we were able to provide medical supplies. So what we're doing is linking America with Africa, specifically Cameroon. We were able to provide services for 63 villages in Cameroon, which, yes, particularly the Bazoo. We were able to bring medical supplies in to villages that people who live in remote areas and could not get to medical care. So they're suffering from diabetes, they're suffering for different things that we can prevent, preventive things that we can prevent. So we were able to buy blood pressure testers, rooms for the people to be screened in, computer technology so that we can monitor their health as they go on, so that we know we have a baseline reading and we know what's needed. So with the help of the Black Women's Roundtable and the $2,500 donation, in Jesus' name, we are so thankful to the Black Women's Roundtable. So everyone give yourselves a big applause because you are a part of this wonderful agency. Yes, thank you.
Okay, so again, I'm Latasha Brown. I'm with Black Women's Roundtable, and we've been doing a lot of work over the last couple of years as part of the network, particularly around the International Decade of People of African Descent. I work as a delegate with an international group that's actually pushing for the International Decade of People of African Descent. And we, with our partners in Guyana, we actually had a gathering 2 years ago that Marcia and I actually attended, and then both of us are also on the U.S. Human Rights Network. I know she'll talk more about. In addition to that, there's we have to often think about, the slave ships didn't just go to Africa, the shores of Africa, and come to America. The Caribbean, from Brazil and the Caribbean is the way it is because they had a shared experience and a shared history, right? And so a lot of the work that we've been doing in recent years has been with Caribbean brothers and sisters. And so we actually have a Black Women's Roundtable. Well, it's a Guyanese women's roundtable. We actually been working with them to establish actually a mental health system. We've actually been working with them to create, for the last 3 years in a row, we've been going back, had the first conference there around having mental health. And the reason why it's significant is because there are more suicides in Guyana per capita than anywhere in the world. And they don't have a comprehensive mental health system. So there's been a team of us that have been going to Guyana once a year, at least once a year, sometimes twice. Also, we actually, and there's a very vibrant Black Women's Round chapter there. And the leader of it, the coordinator who's usually here, just ran for office. Won for office. And one elected office is a big deal too, because it's 2 years ago, there had not been local elections in Guyana for over 20 years. And so there was a delegation of Black women from Black Women's Roundtable that do this work, that we went over there. We were attorneys, we were organizers. We went over there and actually met with the community leaders to actually train them around and share our lessons around voter participation and voter engagement. And then the last country that I raised is Belize. We're doing a lot of work. I've been doing a lot of work with the Belize around economic empowerment and figuring out how the global South, that those that are in the South U.S., that when you look at the structure, the infrastructure that was really based off of a very extractive kind of industry that really exploited the work, the brilliance, and the bodies of Black folks, you see the same thing in Belize. And so there's an ongoing relationship with the women in Belize to actually establish an economic project with 20 women in the South and 20 women in Belize. Oh, and some of us are going to that thing. In 2 weeks, there's a group that are going to Brussels. We're going to Brussels to meet with Black parliamentarians around the International Decade.
Very good stuff. So, in thinking about what I wanted to share, being able to be on this, have this moment with Sarah, I would say we were fortunate in Atlanta to host the women from Kenya and Brazil. That was wonderful. But I wanted to start by pointing out that there's a symbol, BWR. I was going to tell you what that is, but I was like, no, we can't be lazy. So if you don't know, look it up. But we started with a connection to Africa and about Africa. Melanie has done civic training in Ghana. She took a delegation to Durban. And we have been doing work in and around Africa simultaneously the whole time. And then over the seasons, there'll be new efforts and new opportunities. But right now we are in this decade moment, and we are in this 400-year moment. And a lot of times we don't think about our responsibility for pilgrimage. So there's a lot that I could share, but I feel that as an African descendant in America, you've not truly arrived or accomplished if you haven't made or sent one on that pilgrimage. And I believe in terms of having an experience that each time I touch back to the continent, I free so many souls that are at the bottom of an ocean. And so if you are able, so health-wise everyone's not able, but you can send and you can support. But if you are able, as we are prayerful, whatever God in whatever manner you pray, and wherever you might want to touch on that continent, I feel that pilgrimage is something that, as far as I know, every book that you delve into will tell you about returning and returning home. And there should not be a way that we are trying to communicate across the water and we cannot tell a sister there of our struggle here. As we come to understand it, we have got to articulate, and there's a sharing in language, and we need to be present. But if you are a woman of means, then by all means, make your pilgrimage.
I want to, because I'm going to skip down to Sheila, and then we'll do the panel.
Thank you. Sheila Tyson from Birmingham, Alabama, and I've had an opportunity to actually go to Kenya, Nairobi. We went and we spent about 18 days there, and it was an experience of a lifetime. The last time I was in Africa, I was actually in the military when I went over there. And I have been over there several times, but it was never like this. It was always about working with the military when I went over there. So they never seen me in this light, like in civilian clothes. They always seen me in military clothes. And when I had an opportunity to meet several people dealing with the unions, and so we have actually been doing conference calls, and we're getting ready to do a satellite workshop on women's rights and domestic violence. So it's a relationship that over the months and the years that I still have with these women. You know, I can they call me for all type of different things, but it's things that they really need, and it's laws that need to be changed over there. And working together, they're actually getting ready to change a whole lot of laws about when it's concerning domestic violence and women's rights. And I'm just very happy that I had an opportunity to go. And they're getting ready to set up our satellites TV actually in my office, where I can do my conferences through that. So I will let everyone know, and if y'all want to come, you can actually have an opportunity to go through the workshop with us. We have the University of Alabama is actually working with us with this workshop on domestic violence.
All right, thank you. I'd like to have the rest of our panelists join us. Fatmata, if you could come up. Monica, come up, please. Is Julianne in the room? Yes. And sit where you're comfortable.
Good afternoon once again, ladies and gentlemen. I see a couple of guys in the room. I'm Barbara Perkins, and on this panel, I'm representing the International Black Women's Public Policy Institute. The organization is the only public policy institute that is run by, focused on solely black women. Dr. Haidt, my mentor of 17 years, said, "Make the call and the women will come." She also said, "What you do locally can have a tremendous impact globally." I had the honor of being Dr. Haidt's gopher, self-appointed, I might add, for 16 years. It included pushing her wheelchair, carrying her purse, getting drinks, water, standing by the door, signing folks in, all of those things for about 10 years without talking. I was just privileged to be in the room. I then traveled with her 4 times to the continent and then represented her at the International Conference on Women in China. And when Dr. Haidt asked, "I want you to go and make a presentation at this conference in China on the role of young black women in the world," of course I said yes. And then I quickly went to my room and asked my girlfriend, "What does that mean?" I have no idea, but of course I'm not going to tell her no. Today I am the co-founder of the International Black Women's Public Policy Institute. We started 10 years ago. Out of the introduction that who we are today right here in this room represents women across the globe. So my board consists of 22 women representing 7 countries and 11 cities in the US. We meet only twice a year, in March and in September, face to face. We do all of our work by conference calls and committees. We have, as initiatives, 4 areas that we focus on: health and wellness, education, economic security, and the eradication of human sex trafficking. We have 2 programs, one called Boots on the Ground, and that came out of our work in Haiti. After the hurricane, we gathered from the fire department, the police department, and the labor unions in California over 500 pairs of slightly worn work boots that would be thrown away otherwise, shipped to Haiti so that those men and women and children could clean their communities and work without having airborne transmitted diseases. We also did that work after Harvey in Houston. What you do locally has an impact globally. And the second program that we have is a program called the Reading Room Initiative. In every country that we go to, and we travel every 2 years, in every country that we go to, we are in partnership with a women's group on the ground. We usually start out with what we know, the YWCA. Of course, you all know, those of you who know Dr. Height, she was very much a part of the YWCA, so we always start out looking to see if there's a Y that we can partner with. And then we create this reading room initiative, and it could look like books in someone's home that the children have access to, or it can look like our reading room that we just opened in the Bahamas last March, which is the adoption of a small library in a community. Finally, I will say we are in Belize, where we have a reading room there at the Y. We were hosted by the First Lady of Belize about 4 years ago. Belize, Bermuda, the Bahamas, Cuba, Ghana, and I've forgotten one. Haiti. And we are, again, in 7 states. This year, our focus is on South Africa. So we are planning to have our conference in 2020 in South Africa. I will give you the website so that you can find any additional information. It's ibwppi.org. And I will say with the Black Women's Roundtable, I've been a part of the Black Women's Roundtable for 10 years, for 11 years. And there's no separate work. We're doing all of this work together. This is an all hands on deck operation. No geography, no landscape can separate our hearts and our intentions. So I do this work separately alongside of the Black Women's Roundtable and all of the other organizations represented here today. Thank you.
Hello, good afternoon. This is not working, right? Hello and good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
My name is Cynthia Hewitt, and I am the director of the International Comparative Labor Studies program at Morehouse College.
All right.
So we're just beginning this labor studies program because one of the things we need to do when you get recognized as an elite institution is to recognize that there's no elite without the people. So I'm here to talk a little bit about our relationship with Africa and then with the rest of the world. when I first entered Morehouse 15 years ago, they began to talk about let's internationalize the curriculum. And everybody talked about where they'd like to go, and many of us would like to go many places. It's with good reason. But I always said that we need to go to Africa first because we need to understand that we're not a minority in the world. Right. When we get to the international arena, we need to understand that we're African and that all of our people together are a powerful people. So that shifts the dialogue. I grew up during the Black Power era, so I understood that ultimately, if you want to come to the table, you have to have something behind you when you come to the table. If you don't have money behind you, you have organization behind you. So when I look at what's happening now with Black Lives Matter, and then people even had the nerve to criticize Black Lives Matter for not coming with an answer, when in fact the answer is very difficult, and you have to look, to me, you have to look far out there to find our answer. Because as I heard here today, we struggle and take two steps forward, and we push us one step backward. We live in a state of fear right now. Trump said to us, well, at any time I can unleash the military on you, the police on you, the vigilantes on you, so you better be happy that's not happening. So my position vis-a-vis Africa is that I think we should read carefully, and this is what I tell our young people, you know, they don't necessarily want to read. We need to read carefully what Marcus Garvey said. Yes. The condition of Africa is going to be the condition of African people everywhere. We need to look carefully at what W.E.B. Du Bois did. Right? He told us we had a double consciousness. But how did he resolve it? He moved to Africa. He let his U.S. citizenship lapse. He took up residence in a homeland. So if you watch the trajectory of his life, and he struggled over all kinds of class questions, he struggled on behalf of women, he struggled in so many areas, but in the end he said, okay, I'm going to put an end to this, I'm going home. Yes. So I think if I can go on. Malcolm X, when he passed, he was creating the Organization of Afro-American Unity. What he said is that we need an organization so we can join the African Union as one part of the African world. So I think perhaps the most important leader we should also read is Kwame Nkrumah. Yes, yes. And Kwame Nkrumah argued that if Africa could unite, Africa would have the strength to not be the victim around the world as each country is, but rather would face the world with power. And I think that there's no doubt about it. If you think about United States history, suppose just New Jersey had decided I'm going to beat the British, or suppose just North Carolina or Virginia did. One thing they knew is that they had to come together. Do you think they were any closer to each other than the African people are today? I can tell you no. How each one of them came into existence was its own dynamic. They had their own religious beliefs. They had their own economic strengths. They had their own competition. So it's okay. So it's a matter of knowledge of the importance of coming together. And this brings me to our initiative, which is that we are asking historically Black colleges and universities, HBCUs, to come together and to act as a catalyst for a new generation of education in Africa and in the diaspora. You know, we are HBCUs and we suffer a bit. You know, we struggle. We don't have the big finances. So many of your young people still come and join us in our education process. And so I think that nobody knows education without all the means you'd like to have, like an HBCU. So if you look at the data on African countries, there's so many children out of school. And when I thought about it, what brought me to this particular decision is that I looked at my granddaughter, who has what she needs in life, but she didn't want to go to high school here. She had a lot of reasons not to. So she went ahead, and her mother let her, my daughter let her. She signed up online, and she's finishing this year of high school online. So I said to myself, why is it then that I can go to Africa and go into a Queen Mother's area, and the Queen Mother herself can cry and tell me she wished she could go to high school? Yes, technology has made all of this different. It's such a game changer. So what we're proposing is that we should come together as HBCUs. We should utilize our knowledge about how to do education, create that platform, work with people who are culturally connected to the village, and also on the front line for education. So we want to work with Queen Mothers. And we want to work with union members, because we want to know, when we're having our education, what are people educated to do? How do we know what we want to do? Unions know that. So we're going to work together in that way. I hope you'll watch our progress on the Morehouse College website. And I just reach out to all sisters in the room to come and join us. We will be creating an ongoing project. So we'll have events, but much more than the events, we really need help to dig down and create a platform, create a new form of education. Thank you.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Marcia Johnson Blanco, and I first came to BWR many years ago, working on international issues as a member of the Institute of Caribbean Studies, and have since done work as a voting rights attorney with the Lawyers Committee. But I'm also on the chair of the board of the U.S. Human Rights Network. And the work that I do is very connected to the work of BWR. And one of the things that I hope that the message you're getting here this afternoon is that we are global citizens, and we should see ourselves as people of African descent, and to think about how we connect to people of African descent around the world. And you've heard of, Sarah mentioned the International Decade of People of African Descent, and this is one way in which there's a formal opportunity for us to engage with people of African descent around the world. There are now efforts to write a declaration, for the UN to adopt a declaration, looking at how people of African descent can come together. And because it's a formal process within the UN, it's also a political process. And your voices need to be heard. What do you want to see in a declaration that unites us to people of African descent around the world? Just this past week, there was the Commission of the Status of Women at the UN, and one of the discussions was the status of African women and girls around the world. There are opportunities for us to have these discussions, and our voices need to be heard in these discussions. Here in the U.S., we're very privileged. There's lots of challenges in the U.S., but compared to our sisters around the world, we're very privileged, and we have a lot that we can bring to the table. We just need to engage. But we also need to engage domestically. There's a lot happening domestically that needs our attention and our voice. I want to talk about the temporary protected status, in which countries like Haiti are protected under, and this administration is trying to send people of Haitian immigrants back to Haiti, and luckily a court has put a stop to these efforts, but they continue. There's now a bill in Congress that's tied to the TPS and the DACA, the Dreamers. They need to hear your voice. Your members of Congress need to hear your voice on this. There's also the deferred enforced departure that has an impact on our Liberian brothers and sisters. The Trump administration has decided to end the deferred and forced departure for Liberians. And it's to end this month, March 31st. As part of the Lawyers Committee, we were involved in a lawsuit trying to stop this deferred departure. And one of the things that this action of the Trump administration lifts up, particularly with regards to Liberia, is how we're tied to Liberia. And there was an article in the Washington Post, and the title of this article really encaptures how we're tied back to Africa and back to Liberia. The article said, the title of the article is, "Her ancestors were enslaved in the US. Now a Trump decision could lead to her deportation to Africa." As you know, historically, there was the plan to send enslaved Africans back to Africa and Liberia, and the country was created, Monrovia, named after President Monroe. And so there's that connection that even we're feeling today. And so your voice also needs to be heard, and this administration needs to know that we do not support this effort to send Liberian immigrants back. With Liberian immigrants who've been here for decades, this program has been under Democratic and Republican presidents. They have US-born children who will be separated from their parents if the Trump administration is allowed to do this. The other issue I just wanted to lift up about where our voices need to be heard and our engagement is on the census. You may know about the efforts to put a citizenship question on the census, and this is an effort to keep certain people from filling out the census form. And there's a lot of attention about the Latino and Asian communities. But we have a large communities of African descent that are also impacted by the census question. And we have successfully litigated in federal district and appellate court in district court on this issue. The Supreme Court is going to be hearing this issue in April, and it's going to be decided by June of 2019. However, everyone needs to participate in the census, because if our people of African descent who are immigrants do not participate in the census, it also impacts your political power, because they're in your communities and they are not going to be counted. That means significant number of people in your communities are not going to be counted. So I really urge you to come together and engage with us on these issues, and really think of yourself as global citizens of people of African descent, and how we can engage together with our brothers and sisters around the world to lift up the issues that are relevant and necessary for all of us across the globe. Thank you.
Hi. Hi, my name is Monica Costa. I'm originally from the favelas of Brazil, Rio de Janeiro. And I'm here because of you. And Marcia invited me here, and she doesn't even know the story, is that 30 years ago, groups of African Americans used to go to Brazil for the Festa da Boa Morte in Bahia. And many African Americans, large groups, would go, and mainly black women said, well, we're coming here every year for this party, but we don't have black tour guides. So where are they? And now, being from Brazil, they used to advertise employment and say, come only if you have good appearance. And that meant, if you're black, do not come. And don't even mind to, don't apply. And I remember them coming to organization of Afro-Brazilian history and culture which I was working for our first march in 1983, for equal rights, for human rights. And at that time, I spoke English then, and they invited me to participate, but it was exactly what's going on. So for me to be here in this panel today, it's a dream come true, because I remember dreaming of being touched with each and every one of you, and be able to, like in the favelas, and you see some of the movies or the movements and things like that, and say, oh my God, they are so powerful. They can make things happen. And they do, and they have a voice, because, you know, though just now we have like the last census being officially said that we are majority blacks, like as if we didn't know, but now this time many of us check black because, you know, there was like the mulattoes or the ones that, you know, like, oh, no, I don't want to be associated as being black. Well, this time, you know, there is a whole movement that we are, yeah. And it's because of you, and it's because of, you know, BWR and all the organizations in this umbrella. And I want to thank you, first of all. I want to thank you for who you are. 30 years ago I came. I studied at the University of the District of Columbia with a volleyball and tennis scholarship. So therefore you paid for my education. I'm an educated woman. I'm the dream of my slave ancestors. And as my sister was singing and praising God and talking about hearing that, and as we talk about going back to Africa, the truth is the whole globe is ours. And whether we are in Brazil, in the Caribbean, it's ours. We paved it with, our ancestors paved with their blood and so much work. And I want to invite you to think transformatively in the sense of, like the sister said about, you know, like being on the internet and studying. We hold the knowledge. We do have, we can. And as far as HBCUs, for the ones that are working there, treat those students as future kings and queens. I mean, with a great, amazing customer service. Because, you know, if I can expect, you know, going to you and you treat me like as I know who you will be. I don't care who you are now as far as your grades or whatever, but I know who you will be. Then it makes a whole difference. Because as we connect with the young people, as we always connect and make sure that they know that they appreciate it, because we cannot carry this work, because look at, you know, they will be the ones that are gonna realize some of the dreams that we have and might not be realized in our lifetime. So as I sit here in front of you speaking your language, I am the dream of so many Afro-Brazilians. My grandmother was pretty much given to a white family to go to Rio to work as a maid. You know, AKA slave, who knows who, if she even got paid. So there's a whole history behind. Today, 30 years later, I'm the only black owned and operated auto repair and auto body in the DMV area. Yes, and I want to invite us to think technically, industrially, and I want, you know, buy buildings. Buy, because, I mean, at this point right now, and like last year, I was stopped. I didn't have the connection. Marcia, thank you for finding me. I didn't have the connection to say, okay, who do I tap into? I was told, no, I could not have my own building. So because so many of us that get into the technical field, we end up getting, you know, beat down by rent. The lease is expensive. And before you know, we're out of the game. And so therefore, as women, we are entrepreneurs by nature, because we're gonna make sure that our children, you know, they raise and that they're gonna succeed in some way, somehow. That's who we are. And one of the things that I learned even in Brazil, that was like, oh my God, do they know who they are? You are queens, and sometimes we tend to forget. One of your strength, one of our strength, it dates back at Selma bus boycott. You know, so when I see vendors out there, it's like, yes, but if your money, if your mechanic, if you're heating and AC, that's where you really, you know, your money is going to. Your, you know, who are the tech people that we are paying into? So please make sure that, you know, like the initiatives to buy black, the Black Wall Street, that we are behind things like that, sisters. Because it's not only being a mechanic, like this is my field, it's not only being a mechanic or body man or auto body painter. Okay, what are they doing? You know, this whole thing that we can be a millionaire over the internet is wonderful and beautiful. Please, we all got to make sure that we are there too. And we have to make sure that the technicians, that the young people, that they are technicians and entrepreneurs. Because a lot of the dealerships, a lot of, you know, I'm talking about my industry, a lot of the dealerships, they have blacks working in technical fields, but they will not send them to training. And that's a trick. In which is like, so therefore, you're not really, even though you are, so you stay as a helper. And I know that we black women are not gonna sit and let our men just be used and abused. We won't. So therefore, make sure that, going back to high school, trade school, if you go back to trade school within high school, because let me tell you something, that same trade that, you know, like the kids, it's $15,000 to $20,000 to $50,000 out here after they finish high school. So why not make sure that they are getting those trades? Maybe they will not even use it. Who knows? But if they need, it's right there. And right after high school, they can go straight to a $20, $30 an hour job. And this makes a difference. Once again, I am so honored to be here among you queens and to hear about, you know, like that so many of you guys have already got in touch with some Afro-Brazilian communities, and I'm here and I'm putting myself into this conversation as well. Please, let's talk about transformative education, about it doesn't take forever. And I'm local. I'm in Rockville, Maryland. The local sisters, please, you know, I'll have business cards. But make sure that you're honoring the technicians in your lives who are really going for certifications. That's the name of the game. Thank you so much for being here.
I'd like to go back to the end of the stage and have Julianne speak. Julianne has joined us from Cameroon.
Good evening, everyone.
Good evening.
My name is Julianne Siwe from Cameroon. I'm a French part of Cameroon. It's why my English is not very good, but I will try to speak English for everyone. I'm here about and because Black Women Roundtable. And 2016, I was invited by the group of Florida because I have my neighbor who have a daughter in Florida, and she lives in Florida. And Salandra Benton invited me for the first time to meet Black Women Roundtable. It was in 2016. Since that time, many things changed in my life. Change in the life of the population of Cameroon. What I'm learned here, I'm the founder of a non-profit organization named World Coming Together to Make a Difference. Because I come in this country dying, very sick. I was treated free in Brigham and Women, Boston. I was treated free Mass General. I was treated free in Boston Medical Center. It was something very unusual for me, coming from Africa. I create this organization to learn here. I teach my people back home. And I'm working in Cameroon, in Africa, because we have some country already launched and member. we work with the kings. The king who lead the villages. The king who make king, grow king, and die king. And the king knows the population more than the politician. Working with those kings, since 2013, I have a conference every year here in the US, because learning by read is different than learning by practice.
All right.
Because every year I invite the member of Cameroon to come to US for the conference, for the practice, to meet some people, and they go back home and try to learn and to do the same with the needed population in Cameroon. My first action was the screening of high blood pressure to underneath population for the kingdom, because the high blood pressure is a silent killer who you don't know, or you know that you have it only when you die, or people diagnostic very, very late. With the help of Black Women Roundtable, I was able to send more than 300 blood pressure machines to do the job in the needed population in Cameroon. And last year, we have a conference in the acculturation. Acculturation means people who lose their culture. And the headquarters of my organization is in Boston, and the first edition was in 2016. My people from Florida was with me, and the second one, when the king come here, we make a trip in Orlando to meet those ambassadors in Orlando, and those women of Orlando, led by Solandra, receive more than 15 kings coming from different countries in Africa. And during the launching, those kings were blessed by the visit of the 2 mayors and 1 senator. And this proclamation was signed because those kings who come to Florida. And in December 2018, some people of Black Women Roundtable go to Cameroon and make a restitution of this proclamation to the government, and the national president or king of Cameroon was very proud of what Black Women Roundtable did from their population in the kingdom, and decide for the meeting of Black Women Roundtable to send somebody to represent those kings. It was the king supposed to tell what he come here, but they denied the visa, and only 1 have a visa. And if you give me some more time, you will come and share what the king, what to tell to the Black Women Roundtable. Thank you very much. Gabriel? You represent the national president of King from Cameroon.
Okay, good evening, everyone. So the message that I'm going to read is coming directly from the president of King of Cameroon, who was very impressed for the coming of some American guys last December 2018. So, but let me open the message coming directly from him and to share with you guys. On behalf of Cameroonian, an African king, I personally wish you to thank you for the action you are taking to help the continent. In December 2018, I lead personally the group that received a delegation from American on behalf of Okotobadi NGOs, non-profit organization based in Boston. And this team has demonstrated their commitment to make a difference by learning the reality on the ground and offering to help in the school of children born deaf. Dear brother, dear sister, as Dr. Eugenia said, as Dr. Eugenia said, we have the same blood flowing in our vein, and the same color is red. So we are grateful to you for bringing about change in the most powerful way and touching life and doing good. Red, white, and black, we have the same blood. We are now preparing for the first ever International King Day in July 2019, and we will be honored to have you play an important part at the event where several kings from the continent will be in attendance, we hope. We cannot do it without you, amazing support, and in the name of every Cameroonian and African that will benefit from all of us working together, I want to say thank you for having you around. It is a great honor, and may Lord bless you. All right. Thank you. Because in French we have 2, 4, not 2, that's it. So in the name of the President of Kim in Cameroon, so we have to deserve some proclamation to some people who play a big role for this event, who took place in December 2019 and 18 in Cameroon. So the proclamation was okay, this is what?
This is the proclamation we received in Florida, and the national president of Cameroon wants to give it to the national president of Black Women Roundtable because you are their daughters, their children, the queen, the princess, all of that, is to show that this is what the national president king of Cameroon received, is to give the copy to the national president.
So this stuff in Africa is a big one. It's a power. In the name of the President of the King of Cameroon and the King for all the African countries, let me address it to you. This is for you. On this one is the bag. This bag may have a lot of things to do. This is for calendar. Oh, wow. Okay. Okay, this TOEFL is also his recognition for the work done. Perfectly work done. Dr. Eugenia, that was deserved to you. So this one, as you can see, this is their traditional clothes. West Kingdom in Cameroon. So it is deserved to
Pastor Gina, who leads the spiritual community of work coming together to make a difference.
So, by the way, we are there because we are there for Cameroonian guys, for our black guys, for what you guys are doing. We appreciate.
This is the headquarters of the organization, and everywhere we launch the organization, we two flags, Cameroonian, who is the country launching, and U.S., the headquarters of the organization.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you. Melanie, you want this? Thank you. How beautiful. Our last guest panelist, Fatima, go ahead.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen. So my name is Fatma Tabari. I am originally from Sierra Leone, and I grew up here in the U.S., in Florida to be specific, and to a certain degree I consider myself a Southern girl. So it's one of those things where you move up here and it's a little different from down there. You talk a little different. You say things like, you know, cat picking, whatever. And out here, nobody knows what you're talking about when you say, you must be out of your cat picking mind. And people say, why is she saying that? That is so racist. But, you know. So I'm an immigration attorney and a special education attorney. So I've practiced special ed since 2002 and immigration about since 2008-9. I've been an advocate for the past 20-some years, and my life has basically been advocating for black rights, for African immigrant rights, for women's rights, and for our children, especially our children with special needs. My job here today is to talk about immigration and the African immigrant experience here in the United States. I am from the African Immigrant Caucus, and we are an organization that was created and had an official launch in 2014, where we gathered over 1,500 African immigrants in the DC metro area out in Montgomery County at the time, and we brought the gubernatorial candidates for the state of Maryland to address us on issues pertaining to our communities in the DMV, and making sure that they understood where we stood, the issues that pertain to us, and what are they going to do if they made it into office. And it was an amazing day because we were able to bring that many people together to address issues pertaining to our community. African immigrants make up about 4.8% of our immigrant population here in the U.S. We have statistically been very highly educated. We come in highly educated and we become even more educated once we get here. But the sad part is that there are many who have degrees, but they're underemployed. And you have cab drivers who have medical degrees. You have, example, my father is a civil engineer, retired. But growing up, my father, before we came, he went to MIT. He got his graduate degree from MIT. He taught at MIT. But growing up here in the US in the 80s, you still had him and my mother cleaning office buildings. You still had him driving cabs in New York. We lived in Rhode Island, so he would be in New York driving a cab, then he would come home on the weekend. So you have these stories, right? And many times we don't see or hear about these type of stories. We have the misconception of what Africans do when they come to this country. We have the idea that, we come from asshole countries. But the African immigrant experience is doubly impacted because although we are classed as immigrants as others, we're also black. So the experience here is a little different. So you have a double. I like to say, growing up in this country, I had to learn to navigate two worlds. When I go home, I'm in Africa because my mother always cooked African food. She always spoke to us in Creole. She didn't speak to us in English. My father would, but my mother doesn't. When you leave the house, you're in America. So you're an African American in the literal sense. You leave, you're an American child growing up in America, right? So the experience is a little different. So now we have, in this new environment, we have people who have accents, but they're black. So the things that may happen to most of us when you get pulled over, when they realize you have an accent, things change, right? And one of my sisters, Patrice, she works with UndocuBlack. And I'm sure you guys know the work that they do. And it's to bring attention to the fact that African immigrants, because they're black, and all black immigrants, because they are black, they have an extra layer of on being not protected, I guess is the only way I can put it, right? The minute you have an accent, things change for you. I just had a case in Arlington where this young man had a marijuana charge. He had a weed possession. Normally, that would be, really, they only charged him, what, $30, I think it was? But his situation changed dramatically because he's technically, even though he wasn't an undocumented black child. So then he's detained, and he's being held in detention. And he is on the list to be removed and sent back. Others don't experience this. They just don't. So there's a different layer, there's a different experience that a lot of times we don't realize. The numbers of black immigrants who are being deported is higher than anyone thinks. The narrative is around others, and there's nothing wrong with that because it's huge. But the numbers of black immigrants in this country is lower, but yet the percentage of removal in comparison to the numbers that are here is higher. Okay? So what we need is support. We know that a lot of times we talk about the divide between the black immigrant and the African American, but by the time we leave here, and I feel so blessed being on the stage with these queens. I am so empowered, you have no idea, listening to you, that by the time we leave here, we realize the interconnectedness that we have. Because I always say when I walk out the street, nobody sees an African woman, they see a black woman before I open my mouth and tell them who I am. So we need support, we need your voice, we need the same thing that happened during the civil rights era to happen now. Because the attack that's on us as African immigrants is the same attack that is on all of us as black people and as black women. And as women, we can and we will uplift ourselves and our children and make our nations what they should be and stop all the raping of Africa and destroying who we are as a people. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. I'd like to thank all of our panelists. I really, this was great. The information. I wish we had more time because then we can have a discussion, but because of time, we won't be able to go into a Q&A right now, right? But these ladies are going to be here with us. And so, if you got burning questions, go up and talk to them, right? Pull them aside, have those conversations. I know I'm going to. And so if you guys, I know it's getting late, but if you can bear with us for like 10 more minutes. And I'd like to have Marcia Dyson join on the stage. And ladies, thank you.
Can we give Sister Sarah and our queens? And I know it's been a long day, but we ask you to just hold for about 15 minutes. And then y'all don't have to see us again unless you decide to come to the movie tonight around 7 o'clock. And we'll probably maybe push it to 7:15 just to give you a little more time. And so thank you, Sarah. No, can we give Sarah, because Sarah pulled this together, and then her and Marcia and the working group, the Global Empowerment, Black Women's Roundtable Global Empowerment Working Group. And one of the things we've been talking about, you know, with what's been going on with the attack on the mosque, you know, and all the lost lives that's been going on, it was really important that this conversation be much, much broader when it comes to, I think what Sarah said, the diaspora, African diaspora is really, really rich, much larger than many of us tend to think of it as. So Marcia, we turn it over to you. We thank you so very much. Love you so much, and take it away. And we do not give no robbery for us to focus and listen in on what you sisters have to say. Thank you.
Thank you. First, I want to thank everyone for staying. What I realized when I'm looking out this way is that so many of you did stay because we are a global community. And as the panelists have said, we are tied by this golden thread, not only of our ancestry, but as black women and women of color, by the heart and the purpose into which we really have taken from the Judeo-Christian command to tend to the Garden of Eden. I'm representing right now the Women's Global Initiative. My platform is for-profit entity where we try to create economic wealth with women of color around the world. In fact, we try to take some of the nonprofits, but based upon my work with nonprofits with former presidents whose names I will not mention, I saw how their friends would come in and work with nonprofits, but yet make billions of dollars without infrastructure for the countries that are now still poor. That has to end. So we will have that conversation about how to go from nonprofit to for-profit, because there are sisters who are doing $100 million contracts on the continent. And before I introduce my guests, I also want to say, because the ambassador, Erikonda Shimchabrodi from the African Union, was going to have a conversation with us. There is this movement with the African Union and their summit. The Africa 400 agenda is live, and there is a plan to make Wakanda for real on the continent for us children. The intent of that is to take the slave ship and moonwalk it back on the continent for wealth and not us as shadow. So there's many opportunities for us. The presidents are giving land away. They're giving away the land, and so that we can do it. They realize post-colonization, now that they're past their infancy in their presidencies, that it is a collective consciousness of not only the natural resources, but the brain trust also of their African diaspora, which includes us. And so my guests today with me are Zinab El-Sawaji. She is the president of the American Islamic Congress. She's originally from Iraq. I love to brag that she's a lioness because she actually fought in the war to liberate her country. She also... She's a former educator at Yale University, and very important to my life. After I went to the continent with President Clinton to Rwanda, Liberia, Senegal, and Ethiopia, the second person that took me to the continent was Zinab, because what we forget, MENA, the northern part of Africa, the Muslim part of Africa, is also quite important to our dialogue. So she took me to the country in Africa called Egypt, in the city of Cairo. But she also has done work in Libya, Tunisia, Morocco, and of course back into Egypt, because we forget, we have this sense of talking about Africa in the terms of sub-Sahara Africa. We forget about the north, and what you should know that was very celebratory is that the African Union was really unified last year when Morocco re-entered into the African Union. And not to be political, but you should be informed, the intent of Gaddafi with the Confederate States of Africa was to make Africa strong. He wanted to reduce the usury rates from foreign colonists from 20% to 3%, use a standard of currency which we don't have in America called gold and natural resources, and make sure that they had in place anti-corruption programs within the union itself, which the presidents, though we see all the mess going on, we say in our country, and we try to say that, well, a president said what Africa was, that it mirrors it. But we're in, African leadership is in its infancy. Britain had 400 years to get their shit together. African leadership is only 60 years old. That's a toddler in terms of governance. And so we got to look at it that way. So no, we're not a shithole. I think we're quite charming, and we're going to take that tissue and clean your adage about us up. Okay, I digress. I digress. Hallelujah. Thank you, Jesus. Assalamu alaikum. It is Sunday. On the other side, we talk about the cultural phenomena of the Black Panther. We saw within it, for me, there were two messages that came out of that. One, when T'Challa went back to visit his father's ancestry, he said one thing. He said, why didn't you take the boy with you? I think about how we have left not only our ancestry, which we're tied into our cellular DNA, that's our home, but also the children that we left behind within our own nation, which thank God for all the work that you're doing inside and outside of our Black Women's Roundtable, that you're doing independently with your other organizations in which you created a family. We forgot to take the children home. And then what bothered me too is when Michael B. Jordan took off his shirt, and after I got over the awe of his chest, I saw the markings on his body. And I come from the state of Illinois and the city of Chicago. In 1985, before there was a massive proliferation of guns and drugs, we tried to retard just the gang warfare with black on black love. We wanted to go positive, but I saw those markings, and we could talk about this, but we have to address it. And I don't want to say I'm using any points that are coming from the White House or Fox News, but we have to deal in how we inflict pain on ourselves. I saw every black person who killed a black brother and sister in the city of Chicago, and that Black Lives Matter too. But we have to talk about the socialization. But all that to say, how do we heal ourselves from that? He went back to the continent, and I have a representation from South Africa. I met her at the ambassador's home, and this is Numsa Dalami. Is the owner and founder of the Mercury Worldwide. And what we were talking about was the phenomena of Wakanda. And I want you to know the jury that I have on is from the House of Mandela Family Foundation. I represent the Mandela children and grandchildren. And I'm letting you know right now that we are building a Wakanda in South Africa. The intent of the Mandela children and their families, NF, is to create above Nelson Mandela's burial site a place of pilgrimage so our souls can heal. And that also brings me to why I wanted her here today too, because how many of you call yourselves African Americans? Raise your hand. Raise your hands if you call yourself African American. How many have you been to Africa? Okay, we know we want to call ourselves Africa, but we have to have more than just the ethnic identification with it, or cultural identification with it, or race representation relationship with it. We need to go there. And she's here to tell us why it's important to come here. But before we do that, just quickly, the reason why Zenith needs to be here too, we also forget in terms of Africa being quite Muslim. The girls who were stolen from Chibok were Muslim girls. We forget the women in South and North Sudan. We forget the women who are in those enclaves of Muslim territories, within sub-Saharan Africa, as if they don't exist. So even the religious differences, we cannot negate in our conversation and how we relate to it, because when Zainab took me to Cairo, it was how to create a modern narrative for Muslim women. They came from Oman, they came from Yemen, they came from Iraq, Iran, Sudan, and the places in Nigeria. It looked like us in here, and you're like, whoa, where are they from? They were from the MENA part. They were from the Middle Eastern, North African. Basically, we can have a peninsula. But Zainab, I want to go to you right now, because there is a conversation around hate in our nation, but we saw something horrified that happened in New Zealand. And I want you to talk to us quickly about that in relationship to your relationship and what you do at the American Islamic Congress around peace initiatives and gathering people like us, and how we can help create that narrative with you and your Hajib, let them know that we stand with you.
Thank you very much. Good afternoon, sisters. Good afternoon. I am so glad and happy to be among you this beautiful Sunday here in Washington, D.C., where the political decision is made for most of the rest of the world. I am honored to be among my dear sister, Marcia. This lady taught me a lot in terms of devotion and commitment. She has committed to the African cause and black women and many people around the world. So for me, it's an eye-opener to be with her in many different occasions and many different events. As well as I am very thankful for the Black Women Roundtable. I am glad to be here and to see all of these wonderful ladies who carry a deep experience and very devoted to their cause. So thank you. I come from Iraq, from a southern city called Basra. And in Basra is the only city that has African in it. So by default, I'm an African because the rest of the country look at us as we are from Africa. And this connection, it's very deeply rooted in me because I grew up in a city of multicultural and it's a port city. So we had the African movement in the 18th century, and a lot of African people live in my city. When I came here to the United States, I was not aware of the African American movements. We read about it in history briefly, but not really into deep discussion. One day, my little daughter came and I said, "What do you want for your birthday? What theme of the party?" She said, "I want a Rosa Parks birthday party theme." Now I start wondering who Rosa Parks is. So I kept looking and reading, and I discovered a huge world of women, African American women or women from African origin, and their not only their talent and experience, but also their suffering and their what they have been through, the ships that came from Africa, and the stories, and that took me to a whole other world that I felt so entitled to be part of. My mission at the American Islamic Congress is to defend human and civil rights issues of these people as well. So sister, here I am today with you on this Sunday. And just a couple of days ago, we woke up to a horrific news. And this news came from New Zealand this time, which is a place that we rarely think of because it's very peaceful and very quiet, and but the voices of hatred, the voices of racism and extremism are always loud and make noise in the most divine and most precious things that's dear to us is the human lives of innocent individuals. So there is no difference between what's happening in Chicago or Baltimore and it's happened in New Zealand or anywhere else. When you take a human life basis because this person is different color from you, or a different religion from you, or a different background from you, it means a lot. For many years, I worked on a program in Iraq, in Syria, and many other places to reduce violence. And this program, I have learned about it in Chicago. When I went there and I started learning about how many lives of African American young people, men and women, has been taken for no reason. And I duplicate this project and I modify it to be implemented in Iraq and in Syria to save lives. And believe it or not, reduce the violence in these areas to 42%. And the stories take us to many different directions. But we stay on one thing. Racism, hatred has no background, has no religion, has no base. So we have to stand up against these voices, against these people who have been projecting very loud their voice through taking lives. For them, it has no meaning, but for us, the people who are deeply been affected by it, has a lot to do. And for the future of our kids, my kids and yours, it means a lot. We want to keep them safe, successful, and happy. So with that note, I end to say I would like to thank you again, unless Marcia has other questions.
Thank you very much. You know, Barbara, you always tell me to speak slowly. Then I'm on the calm of Zainab, and I'm like, Barbara told me to speak more slowly, but you know, I'm so agitated and irritated. Rightfully so. Righteous indignation, they call it. Okay, so Numsa, you want to tell us the importance of what is happening on your business side, of what's happening in South Africa, and how you're helping us to connect with the continent in a meaningful and deeper way than we may have experienced it before.
Right. Thank you so much, Marcia. It's an honor to be here amongst such powerful queens. Happy Sunday to everybody. As Marcia mentioned, my name is Nomsa. I am from South Africa, and I'm the founder of Merchantry Worldwide. So the reason why I actually started my organization is because I'm passionate about travel, economics, and the world. So I thought to myself, okay, I've studied economics. I am not going to crunch numbers. My personality does not allow me to do so. How do I reach out? Seriously, how do I reach out to the rest of the world? So I started traveling the world by myself as an unaccompanied minor at the age of 13. And my parents, my mother in particular, coming from South Africa with such a rich history of a place where we had apartheid, we were not exposed. So I'd consider myself as someone who was privileged enough to start traveling within the continent, and my first encounter was Senegal, Dakar. So I was learning how to speak French, and within that I discovered that the world is so divided because of language, but also because we've got barriers that we create ourselves because we don't want to go out there. Not necessarily because people don't know how to want to go out there, but they don't know how to. So it's like, let me start something where we can connect each other, not just as black females, but people around the world, because business has become global, and how do we then interact on a global scale? So I discovered that, do you know what? What you need to actually do is travel first to understand a country and its culture before you can even interact in business. That's exactly how black people get left out of business and contracts, because a lot of Europeans run to Africa before us, and they get those contracts because they're inquisitive. So I was saying to Marcia, how do we bring people back to the continent? We do it through travel. You make yourself familiar with every country you want to travel to, but also connecting people from there with people from here, so that you do have a local presence of understanding how things operate. South Africa is a country where I would say our diaspora is not as big internationally, mainly because of apartheid. We've been kept from the rest of the world for such a long time. A lot of people have the fear of going out there, but also because there's so much opportunity in South Africa. And with me saying that, it's black people wanting to work with other black people, but how do we bring them together? So that's where I come in. And just with Marcia talking about what's happening in the rest of the world, especially the United States, and how scary it is that black people don't really have a voice, this is where we come in and connect the rest of the world to Africa and not just South Africa. Thank you.
I do have another question for you, Zainab. What do you think, or how can we decrease the xenophobia and Islamophobia within America? I know that through your American Islamic programs, you have activities into which I would love to engage the leadership of the Black Women's Roundtable so that we can be more inclusive of our Muslim sisters. How can we do that? And so that Melanie, who's shaking her head that might be a good idea, how can we interact with one another better to embrace our Muslim sisters?
This is a very great question. Thank you very much, Marcia. Actually, we have been doing a lot of programs on the level of college campuses. We have about 87 chapters in different universities in a project called the Project Noor. Project Noor means enlightenment in Arabic. And we talk about these issues and how to reduce these kind of hatred and voices of hatred and extremism throughout college campuses events. So in each college we have between 3 to 6 events every school year, and we try to push for events that represent unity, peaceful understanding, multicultural, multi-ethnics, and how to respect each other as a human beings first. Despite our background, despite our colors, despite our religion, despite our ancestors, and so on and so forth. Dealing with each other on a human being level and respecting each other is the essence of our future. And this is what we are looking for. So these kind of things, it's very important to have talk to each other about it. Would love to host any of the sisters that we have here to come and talk to our student on colleges. We would love to have our student on these colleges also understand what's going on with people of different faith, different colors, different backgrounds, to educate them. These kids are our future, and we have to implement these kind of mutual respect and understanding, multicultural, interfaith understanding, all of that together, because they build the future for, not only for them, but for our nations. And this is what we are looking for. So we'll be very happy to collaborate with the Black Women Roundtable, with the other different organizations. If there are individuals who have great experience, I would like to share it with our students who are actually from multiple different backgrounds, and would love to hear from all of you to make these things possible. We need to have this unity. We need to have this understanding. We need to push for it and to demand it for our future. Otherwise, we're going to be looking at a very chaotic situation where we lose our loved ones and we lose our dignity with it. And the pain that comes with it, it's humongous. I've seen it, you have seen it all. And so let's plan, let's project for that. I remember many years ago, there was a program about Sudan and how to resettle the lost boys of Sudan. I end up with 23 boys from Sudan. All of these young boys were teenagers. They have suffered a lot. They lost their families. They walked from Sudan, southern Sudan, all the way to Kenya. And that was by a dictatorship of their own government that killed their families and made these boys suffer and walk thousands of miles to get to Kenya. These boys were an eye-opener for me to see them here in America and be responsible about 23 teenagers at the age of 26. And they started calling me Mama at the end. And I worked with them closely. I learned about their suffering. And coming from a background that I came from Iraq, and how much we suffered from dictatorship during Saddam Hussein's regime, I connected with them so deeply. And the day of their graduation, we helped them get high school diploma. The day of their graduation was the first graduation I attended for my own children. Wow. Because I was so happy that they accomplished something. And each one of them went into many different walks of lives and to a new job, a new career. So I was really glad to see that hope in them, that they reestablished their lives and they created their own families together. I hope we learn from that experience on how to be one family, that we walked from different parts of the world, different walks of lives, and we can work for our future.
Thank you, Zena. And my last question to you. All right, when we talk about, though you're from South Africa, your platform is beyond visiting just South Africa. So where else can we explore through your business?
Correct. So right now we actually have, we do a lot of conferencing as well. So our travel is divided into different sectors within travel. And a big part of it is because South Africa does not have a represented demographic of black people in travel. So what I decided to do is not just limit myself to focusing on South Africa, but the continents in general. So next month, actually in the month of April, is the closing date for our trip to Ghana, Accra, Ghana, and it being the year of return, we have a Crown Women Rising conference where women entrepreneurs come together from all over the world. They're in one room and we get to facilitate an event focused on building women in Africa and connecting them with women over here so that their products can also be shipped to the rest of the world and their efforts are recognized. So it's not just South Africa, we'll be doing work in Kenya, we'll be doing a lot of work in Mozambique as well. So the idea behind it is to be in the entire continent and just do a lot of projects there.
Thank you. I want to end with, first I want to thank my two guests who stood with us, to this moment. But when we talk about Africa, there's a country in Africa that I learned a very important lesson on unification, and that was a visit into Rwanda. And what I love about President Kagame, if you go there, he has a memorial which pays tribute to the hundreds of thousands of Rwandans who were killed during genocide. And what he did is that he instituted basically a museum of peace. And it wasn't just related to his country. What he had the insight to do so that they wouldn't feel so bad about their tribalism in that country, he showed the genesis of hate from the Holocaust to the barbarity of what happened, the ethnic cleansing in Croatia, so that you can identify with how you had to heal your own human soul, but you were not alone in your barbarity, because he had the countrymen to look at how society had fractured them. And he had the wherewithal to create a unity card. So whether you were Tutsi or Hutu, you were always the Rwandan first. And even though there's still undercurrency of that devastation, which was the magnitude of it was horrific, the attempt to unify, to me, was a wonderful, stellar event. And that's what we have to do. That's what I love about the Black Women's Roundtable. We come from every walk of life. We come from all over the country. We come now from all over the world. And we know that we have not only unification to do, but we have also some healing to do as well. So I thank you for coming, and I thank you, Zena, for coming straight from your travels, and I thank you all, and Melanie, I really thank you, and Sarah, for the great works that you're doing, Barbara, and all the women who understand that we are global citizens who are now, if you're African American, just situated in this United States of America, but we can be united in our works and our collective energies and our social, spiritual activism. Thank you so very much for having us.
Ladies, one last thing. If anyone is interested in coming on the trip to Ghana, you're more than welcome to reach out to me or Marcia. It's from the 6th until the 11th of May. So leaving on the 6th until the 11th. So we're coming back on the 12th of May.
Check that out.
Yeah. Thank you.
So can we give out our sisters is what we call in Black Women's Roundtable. Thank you so very much. But also, before you walk away, how can people stay in contact with you? So they out here can know. Can they follow you on your social media or anything
I am
like that?
The American Islamic Congress, AIC.org.
AIC.org.
Exactly, and I'll be happy to share my cards with you and contact information.
Ladies, I'm going to leave, I think this is all, sorry, excuse me. I'm going to leave some of my cards out there. My website is merchantry-worldwide, and you can also check out our Instagram page.
And then if you are not, how many are not, have not liked Black Women's Roundtable Facebook page? If you are not on Black Women's Roundtable, please do that for those who do Facebook. On Instagram, it's the National Coalition. And what's the other one, y'all? Twitter. Tumblr, too. And all the other ones, right? But NCBCP_BWR. And where are my communications folks? Are they still in the room? Have we lost our communications team? Okay. All right. So we want to make sure that we're using the hashtag BWR Powers. What? Empowers. BWR Empowers. Hashtag BWR Empowers. So can we give my sister Sarah, my sister Marcia, and the Global Empowerment BWR Working Group, stand up wherever you are. BWR Empowerment Group. Solange, stand up. BWR Empowerment Working Group. You on the committee? Okay, thank you. So thank you all so very much for just spending this full day with us. Do you feel like it was a faith and global empowerment day? And so you have a long break. I hope you feel like it is. And that goes until 7, I believe. There is the A&E has a documentary, a movie. I don't have the paper in front of me. But you know what? One of our Black Women's Roundtable members, Michelle Dubois, who has A&E is sponsoring the movie, and they'll have snacks and all. Rena Lewis story, the Rena Lewis story. So it'll be screening and refreshment sponsored by A&E Networks and Values Partnerships from 7 to 9, right here back in this room. And then tomorrow is an early day. Early. I'm going to try to make the exercise today. I didn't make it, I promise. I tried. I thought about it. I did a couple times. Tomorrow we kind of get back to some policy, but and as well as organizing. And so I'm going to ask a question so we can have an idea about how tomorrow ends. How many people are here until Tuesday that travel? Okay. And how many folks are leaving tomorrow at some point? Okay, give us an idea for the town hall meeting tomorrow night. But we start tomorrow, 7 a.m., morning inspiration. Health is wealth. I know I ate a lot of wings this weekend, so I know I need to calamari and other spirits. Now, this is what is tomorrow. Many of y'all are a part of this. We're going to be releasing our 6th annual Black Women's Roundtable report tomorrow morning. And the title this year is Centering Black Women and Girls Leadership and Public Policy Agenda in a Polarized Political Era. Just give you some top lines. We're going to have a philanthropy panel tomorrow. We're going to have, and you don't want to miss this if you're able to and not have to travel. We have a lot. You have your agenda, but I want to highlight that we will be hearing from our girl power, our Black girls track. They've been thinking through developing their Black girl power leadership initiative, and so they get their presentation tomorrow. And then there's some little young sisters that's coming over here. For those who live in the D.C. area, y'all know Cora Berry. She has the Blacks in Wax. And so so she was able to get a few of the young girls out of school tomorrow to come spend some time. And I'm telling you, one of them played me last year, and I was like, wow. And so they're going to be here during lunch tomorrow. It will be a treat if you can be here. So I thank you all for sticking the course with us, staying with us today, and thank you all, love you all, and enjoy the rest of your break.